items. Cassie, can you say hello?
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie McCrea Burns, and I'm a financial advisor at Baird. I'm grateful and humbled to be speaking at this event. I can go ahead and share my screen.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
All right, well, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Perfect, thank you. I consider myself a student of leadership, not an expert, but I'm excited to be exploring this topic with a group of women. I believe, and research has shown, that as women, we excel in areas like empathy, communication, collaboration, and emotional intelligence. We are naturally wired to give and to share. Do you ever stop and think of all the people who depend on us and all the people we support? Giving back is something we do without even thinking, and it's certainly not something we give ourselves enough credit for. How many of you as working moms have showed up at a school event, running late, stressed out, embarrassed to be wearing a business suit and wondering what all the other moms would think, only to find that you were one of the only moms who volunteered for the class party? I did it with all three of my children, praying that showing up would make up for my unbalanced life. I was fortunate to start my career at Piper Jaffray right out of college. I had a liberal arts degree with a major in French and art history and no idea what to do with that. Fortunately for me, you could get away with that back then. I got a job in marketing at Piper Jaffray, and as I learned the business, I found a passion for working with clients, particularly in guiding them through financial planning. I became a financial advisor, and I never looked back. I love what I do because it taps into my purpose, which is to serve and empower others, especially women, to achieve their full potential. I'll talk later about how this has evolved for me, both in work and outside of my work, as I share my leadership journey. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This was and is true for me today. In fact, I tell my kids when they're having a really stressful day to stop and focus on doing one nice thing for someone else. Just the act of thinking about others takes you outside of yourself and immediately gives you a sense of peace. And it just so happens that giving is intricately tied to leadership. Servant leadership prioritizes the needs of others. This is what I'd like to explore with you today. I'll share with you what it means to be a servant leader, as well as examples of what servant leadership looks like. But first, I want to share a story. This is Bob. Bob grew up with a normal childhood in a small town in Minnesota. His father was a dentist and his mother was a school teacher. They didn't have a lot, but they instilled in Bob the value of kindness to all people. From a young age, Bob was a people person. He drew people in and he disarmed them with his kindness, compassion, and genuine interest in them. Through high school and college, Bob did well and made a lot of friends. After college, he found a great wife, got married, and he started a small business, which he grew over time. He was dedicated to the people who worked for him and to his customers. He involved himself in all aspects of the business, and he never considered himself above any of it. Bob was also a great connector. He leveraged his ease in meeting and getting to know people to connect them with others. He became active in the community as an adult through volunteering and eventually was asked to serve on a number of boards. He became known for his ability to fundraise. Later in life, he was given an award for philanthropy, and he referred to his fundraising as a role of connecting the dots. While Bob was successful in his business, his legacy will be the kindness he shared with others and the way he gave back. Bob was a servant leader. And he was also my dad. He passed away 3 months ago, and at his funeral, there was not a single mention of his career. Instead, his children, grandchildren, and 2 of his best friends spoke about the impact he made on people and the organizations he served. Bill George, the former CEO of Medtronic, was one of my dad's best friends. And here are a few comments he made at my dad's funeral. Bob, you are the only person I know who loved everyone unconditionally. You had a unique gift of being able to walk into a room and see someone who was lonely or hurting, and then embrace them with your love and concern for them. You were always authentic and sincere. You had an integrity and wholeness about your life. You had a full-hearted commitment to organizations you cared about, and you served them faithfully until the end. This, coming from an author and professor on leadership, speaking about a man who might never have taken the time to even consider himself as a leader. The only things we heard after his death referencing his work life came from comments we found on the guest book of his online obituary. One said, "I had the privilege of working for Bob for 23 years. Bob was an honorable man, true to his word, and above all, Bob cared about his employees and their families, often asking, 'How are you today?' and 'How's your family?' Another message said, 'He was a great boss. You wanted to do your best for him because you knew you were lucky to work for such a nice man. Of my 45 years of work, the 12 I spent with him were the best. Best human being I ever worked for.'" I share my dad's story today because most of what I learned in terms of leadership came from my parents' example, along with great advice from mentors and people I admired. I'm guessing many of you have learned by following the example of others as well. My dad's death and what we have heard from others about him has made me think about my own legacy. Do you ever stop and think about what you hope people will say about you when you're gone? How you will be remembered? Taking the time to write it out helps us to be more intentional about the way we show up, the way we spend our time, and the way we interact with others. This photo of me and my parents was taken a few years ago at an event for an organization called Opportunity International. They provide small loans to the working poor around the world and educate them to start businesses. My mother came across this organization. She was also a small business owner and was seeking ways to use her skills to make a difference. The sustainability of the microfinance model appealed to her, not to mention the fact that the majority of loans are made to women who use the profits to educate their children so they can have a better future. My parents raised us to be independent, to think beyond ourselves, and to recognize the needs of others. My dad is actually the one who pushed me to apply for a job at Piper Jaffray. He didn't think twice about the fact that I was a woman, had zero experience or financial education. He just said, "Go for it. You'll be naturally good at sales, and you'll have an amazing career in a company like that." I think he was steering me away from becoming a small business owner because it was stressful for them. But he was right. I chose the perfect company with clear values and a strong culture and a mission to provide clients with exceptional advice and solutions to help them achieve their goals. And the CEO was a servant leader. When I speak to kids today coming out of college, I often advise them to find the right organization rather than the perfect job. Great companies will invest in young people and help them identify the right path to success. So what is servant leadership? According to Robert Greenleaf, who wrote The Servant as Leader in 1970, a servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of people and communities to which they belong. In contrast to a leadership style that involves the exercise of power by those at the top of the pyramid, servant leaders share power and put the needs of others first. They encourage personal development so that others can perform to their full potential. Greenleaf explained that the best test of this style of leadership is to ask if those who are served are growing as people. Are they becoming healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? It will not come as a surprise to you that a servant leadership approach leads to a higher level of employee engagement and loyalty. Employees who feel valued and supported are more committed to their work and loyal to their companies. In contrast to a traditional leadership as a form of hierarchical power and control. An article in the Harvard Business Review emphasized that power can cause leaders to become overly obsessed with outcomes and control, and therefore treat their employees as a means to an end. A culture of collaboration led by people with a service mindset encourages people to work together, leveraging their diverse skills and perspectives, which leads to more effective teams and obviously far better results. I joined Baird 6 years ago because I was drawn to the company's values of integrity, honesty, genuine concern for clients, and respect for associates. For the 21st year, we've been named on the Fortune 100 list of best companies to work for. So let's break down what it takes to be a servant leader. In the 7 pillars of servant leadership, James Sipe and Don Frick describe the key characteristics, which I'll walk through quickly. First, a person of character embodies ethical principles, integrity, and moral values, acting with honesty and transparency at all times. They demonstrate humility, which requires courage to be vulnerable and to surrender your ego. And finally, they focus on serving a higher purpose outside of themselves. Putting people first requires that you value others, you consider their growth a priority. It's what my dad's employee referred to when he said that my dad cared about not only him, but his family. In mentoring, it's not about teaching what you know, but instead helping someone else to grow, encouraging them to take risks and learn from their mistakes. Skilled communicator means seeking to understand others before being understood. This is how we connect and how we influence people. It's about listening receptively and demonstrating genuine interest in others, being keenly aware of their thoughts, feelings, or reactions. Also listening to yourself and inviting feedback from others. And finally, influencing others with persuasion rather than power and position. Compassionate collaborators support diversity, strengthen relationships, build teams who work together respectfully and value each other's differences. We need to invite and reward people, celebrate their wins, and when conflict arises, help people listen to each other, to understand where their differences come from and find a way to leverage them for a better outcome. Having foresight allows us to draw on our experience, imagine possibilities, anticipate the future, and proceed with clarity. Being a systems thinker means thinking and acting strategically while considering the overall structure and process of the organization. It involves integrating input from all parts of the system to arrive at a solution, being comfortable leading change, and finally, considering the impact of any actions on everybody in the system, all the stakeholders. To be granted moral authority, a leader must have all of the characteristics I've shared, acting as a person of character, making decisions that put people first, communicating with empathy, collaborating compassionately. We must earn the trust of others and ensure that others trust each other enough to delegate responsibility. So what does a servant leader look like? Marilyn Carlson Nelson, whom a lot of you probably know, has achieved global recognition as an owner and CEO of the Carlson brands of hotels, restaurants, travel, and marketing. She has been recognized by Forbes as one of the world's 100 most powerful women. But that's only part of her story. As a daughter, wife, mother, and grandmother, Marilyn has always put people first. As a civic leader, she has helped to make a huge impact on the Twin Cities, tackling major issues that other leaders often backed away from, like sex trafficking. In her memoir, How We Lead Matters, Marilyn shares memories and insights on leadership. I love this quote: "I believe in the power of community and the ability of one person to make a difference." She often shares her family business credo that was passed on to her from her father, and she's passed on to the next generation. It goes like this: whatever you do, do with integrity. Wherever you go, go as a leader. Whoever you serve, serve with care. Whenever you dream, dream with your all and never ever give up. So how do we become servant leaders? It begins with identifying your values, beliefs, and passions. What are your priorities in life? Where do you find your joy? What quality do you admire in other people? Then considering the resources you have to give. When we think of resources, our minds go straight to money. But I would argue that the experience and knowledge you have might be the most valuable thing you can offer. With your time, you can serve others through volunteering. With your talent, you can coach, mentor, teach, or you could be a connector. And when it comes to your investment of money, make sure to consider the impact of your giving and how it aligns with your values and passions. Next, think about the impact you want to make. What inspires and motivates you? What concerns you? And something you'd like to change? Have you ever dared to consider if your resources were completely unlimited, you had all of the time and all of the money in the world, what kind of difference would you like to make? Or as I contemplated earlier, how do you want to be remembered when you're gone? Then identify opportunities to get involved. The truth is, sometimes we can overthink this. I think that if you've done the first steps here and you stay open, opportunities come your way, and all you need to do is say yes. In his teaching and speaking, Bill George has frequently offered this encouragement. In thinking about whether to step up and lead, ask yourself, if not me, then who? If not now, when? Early on in my career, when I knew I was at Piper, it was the right place to be, and I thought I wanted to develop myself on a path to leadership, I reached out to a couple of mentors. And the advice I got from Bill George was to develop those skills outside of work. He told me not to make the mistake of waiting for a promotion in order to grow. So I started looking within Piper Jaffray at the corporate volunteer opportunities. There was a committee that had openings. It was for the Adopt a Family holiday program, where people buy gifts based on a family wish list. I joined the small committee, and there were people from all different departments there. And in the first year, I volunteered to deliver the gifts. As we did, I was struck by the expression on the faces of the parents who opened the door to receive the boxes, often with their children standing behind them. And as I played it forward in my head, I understood what it must have felt like when they sat around on Christmas morning to open gifts that everyone in the room knew had been given by strangers. In a recap meeting following the holidays, the committee talked about this and we explored options. We developed a partnership with Project for Pride in Living the next year, where family members instead could go to a holiday store that was set up, consisting of a variety of donated items for people of all ages. Each member of the family could then select a gift, wrap it up, and take it home. This gave dignity to the people who were being served, and it felt good to be a part of that change. Later on, I was asked to join the advisory committee for community initiatives at Piper Jaffray, which expanded the group of people I knew and the connections that I made within the company, and also the impact that I could have. At the same time, I had been asked to serve on the board of a social services agency in the Twin Cities. Later, I connected that organization with Piper and helped to organize a group of volunteers to host an annual picnic for all of the families served by the organization. This turned out to be a really fun experience for both the families who were being served and for all of us as volunteers to bond with one another. My volunteer involvement has helped shape me and provided me with a network of people who I would otherwise never have met, let alone worked alongside to solve problems. I've gained both practical experience and knowledge building, along with lasting connections. These photos show some of the places I've visited with Opportunity International and other organizations over the last 15 years. I'm always amazed at the energy I gain each time I visit a new place and meet the clients who are being served. I'm always struck by how resourceful and determined they are and how much they are just like us. The women I have met want the same things we do for their families. They need food, security, and an education, and they're willing to work or do anything to provide it. In the lower right corner, there's a photo of a women's leadership event. This was born out of an idea I had to bring together women in the community and share inspiration, much like what we're doing here today. I got the company I worked for to sponsor the event and to co-host it with Opportunity International, which would bring all of their donors along as well. We used it as a way to share the work, their work, my work, without doing any fundraising or pitching. I was clear from the start, the intent was to give the women who attended an opportunity to network with one another and to learn. Each year we invited different speakers and had a new theme. The first year we had about 150 women who attended, and by the fifth year we found a new venue and the event was sold out with over 350 women. It was really successful and it was really fun to host it. So those are just a few of the ways that I have used giving back as a way to develop myself, my personal brand, to develop my leadership skills, and to grow as a person. The final photo I want to share is from a trip I took to India in January of 2019. And I use it, I keep it on my desk. It's a way for me to maintain inspiration about being a leader and about giving back and why I do it. The women you see in this room were in a really remote part of India, a tiny little town that took like about 4 hours to travel by bus on bumpy roads to get to. And when we got there, they were sitting around so excited, all dressed up, ready to share with us the stories of the businesses that they had started. They were in their second loan cycle, so most of them had businesses that were up and running. Some of them were already starting second businesses or third. Unique to this situation, one of the husbands served us tea, which in that culture is really unusual. And then we went across the street to visit one of the businesses. It was a pottery business. And that woman introduced us to her father-in-law, who she was employing. That too was really, really unusual for the culture. So I find this an inspiration to me because these are women who are working hard just like we all do. They want the same things for their family. And when I'm having a difficult day, I look at them and I know that the struggles they have are much greater than anything we experience. And if they can do it, we can do it. So that is my presentation. I'd love to open it up to questions if anyone has any.
Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, everyone, please keep those questions coming. And as a reminder, if anyone would like to ask Cassie a live question, just raise your hand via Zoom and I can unmute you. So we'll go for this first question from BB. And she says, hello from Duluth. How can I inspire my remote team? I'm struggling to make those connections with staffers that I've never met in person.
That's a really good question. I would say, for me, the remote meetings I've done, I do a lot of board meetings with organizations who are not based in the Twin Cities. The best times I've had in connecting with people are when they do small breakout sessions, and it's a way to really get to know one another. So I would say finding opportunities to virtually have gatherings where you're talking about things that are not business related. Maybe coming together and thinking, if you wanted to use the theme of giving back, maybe it's coming together and coming up with an idea of things that could be done in markets in all different places and then sharing what that looked like. At Baird, we'd have a Baird Gives Back Day, and every market around the country does different volunteer events and then shares photos, shares experiences and stories, and that's a great way to connect people. But I really think it's going beyond your work agenda, finding ways to connect with them.
Well, thank you. Well, I think maybe we have time for one more question, and then we'll ask you for final thoughts and go to Erin's presentation. And this question from Annabeth says, you spoke about volunteers. How can I get people to help our sports team? She says, I also have a full-time job and 3 kids.
It's hard. I would say, leverage people you work with, or I just think bringing people who work together into a volunteer scenario, whether or not the event is of an appeal to them, that just the fact that they're all together and making it fun is a good way to do it. So if it's not your organization and you have a sports team, I would find another organization. It can be any type. It could be another it could be a nonprofit. It could be a for-profit. It could be a school. Really anything. Try to get a group of people who want to come together and have a team building event and support your team.
Oh, that's great advice. Very creative. Well, thank you so much. Well, so as we wrap, do you have any final words of wisdom for all of our viewers today?
I don't. I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's really fun to connect with all of you, and I'd be happy to connect outside of this with anyone. So feel free to reach out to me if I can be helpful in any way at all. And I hope this has helped you. I know I've enjoyed it. I look forward to the next speakers.
Well, thank you so much.